So now number 2 reason tonight is special.
We have
is because
guests.
of our special guests. And that is, you can't hear my drum roll, but it's across from me. I'm looking at Mr. Greg Beats and Mr. Richard Wymark. There's a gazillion reasons why I could have had either of you here, because I've known both of you guys for a gazillion years, and both of your knowledge about Austin music history and Austin music scene is like as deep as the trenches in the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. But that said, tell me about what, and I'm asking this knowing the answer partially, but tell me about why you guys are working together right now on this special project, and what this special project is, and let's let the people know, because I know a little bit, but I want to hear it from you guys.
All righty. Well, years ago, Richard and another colleague of ours who is not with us tonight, named Chepo Pena, started working on a documentary film about Austin underground music in the 1990s. The idea was basically to capture as much history as we possibly could before brain cells took leave and that sort of thing. And the name of this project is A Curious Mix of People. And I guess Richard and Chepo started working. You've been working on it, I think,
since 1485.
Yeah,
1485. Oh, yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Well, you're aging very well, Richard.
And
Thank you.
yeah, I probably came on during the Boer War.
Yeah,
and,
I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, I think actually more like 2015. I think is probably when I started pitching in a little bit, but followed it with great enthusiasm before then. And so now it's kind of morphed into both a documentary, a book that is forthcoming, as well as a zine, which is actually now here right in front of us. So we figured we needed to do something to actually show that kind of proof of concept that that this is something that is that it's not just something we made up. We've actually been all working on it. Many years, many hours, conducting interviews, going through original source material.
Last count was 77 interviews.
Wow.
That's a lot.
And
they reach about an hour or two long.
And you filmed all of those 77?
We filmed all of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Sadly, Dave Herman has passed away since we filmed him, but, everyone else is going strong, thankfully.
Yeah, and Dave Herman was one of the co-proprietors of a club that used to be located between 6th and 7th on Red River called the Cavity Club. And I think for the purposes of our story, the opening of the Cavity in the fall of '91 is sort of the big bang, if you will.
Yep.
So that's sort of, we talk about some of the stuff that was happening beforehand, but in terms of when Austin underground music really turned over a new page, that the opening of the Cavity, a dedicated club that was really, set up to kind of feature anything and everything that didn't have a home in any of the existing clubs, was really a pivotal moment. And then, of course, after that, about a year after Cavity opened, emos came along, and emos obviously kind of changed the whole landscape of things, and started bringing in these touring bands that were playing for free if you were over 21, which made Austin a really great place to check out live music at the time. And then we also kind of where we got our title was a club that was and we're all talking about clubs that were all in one block of Red River between 6th and 7th. Right at the corner of 7th and Red River, there was a club called the Blue Flamingo.
Yep.
And the Blue Flamingo was a gay bar, and I guess very popular with the, I guess we called them transvestites back then. I guess more properly now we'd call them transgender persons.
Yes, absolutely.
So that would be the kind of bar it was during the day. But now at night it was more of a punk rock club. And so Miss Laura, the proprietor of the Blue Flamingo, after the Cavity closed, very graciously opened up her very small, I think it's 35 capacity. That was their occupancy limit, although they sometimes exceeded that. I think the statute of limitations is passed on that.
I don't think hopefully the fire marshals were clean, because I recall some of those nights were dangerous in retrospect.
Yes, and so that was sort of the triad of clubs around which this whole story is based. And we talk about other clubs, Electric Lounge,
sure.
the role Liberty Lunch played, the role the Hole in the Wall eventually started booking a lot of these same bands, so they played a role. Chances,
Chances was there too.
Very.
It's in what is now Cherubs.
Yeah, now Cherubs.
That's right.
But Chances was a lesbian bar that also featured live music, and so a lot of the bands even before the Cavity opened, they were booking, giving sort of bands that couldn't find a home other places a place to play. So it's interesting how this whole scene kind of evolved out of people who were outcast in one way or another, not necessarily having a home, and then kind of finding a home, co-locating together, and making it happen.
Well, Greg and Richard, I always think about things, and it's probably just conditioned from socialized from watching TV or something, but I always think about things in generations, and I find your story that you're telling fascinating, because when I read and hear about the Austin music scene from the 80s, right? So I'll hear about clubs like the Beach and Raoul's, of course, and so, but then there's almost like conveniently a line very close to the decade mark of like a generational switch in scenes, between the folks that are, maybe 5, 10, 12 years older than the folks that started playing the clubs and the scene that you guys were documenting.
Yeah, and we have to acknowledge that. I mean, we're not going to go too deep into it, but I mean, one of the reasons Tim Kerr said he'd talk to us was because he knew that this was sort of a fluid timeline, that we're not making it finite, we're not finishing anything in 99. I mean, that's when Liberty Lunch closed down, I believe. Yep. But that doesn't mean everything stopped. You're passing the torch and carrying on. And I'm actually right in front of us here, there's a poster for a gig called Resistor, I just noticed. And that's being put on by Russell Porter from a band called the F-Emos. So, everything keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. But it's funny, Greg, you said the phrase Big Bang to start everything off. Starrin Wagner, who was one of the other fellas to start the Cavity, he said his spark was when he read Carl Normal's zine called No Reply. And Carl Normal was the lead fella in Stretford. I find it funny that, Carl Normal, a fella from Manchester in England, would come here in the late 80s and say, what Austin needs? It needs a club for all the punk bands to play in, or all the bands that don't fit in to play in. And he wrote this in his zine. He said, please, someone do it, because I really don't want to. And Starrin was enough to do it.
Starrin was there. We had Dave Herman with the sound system. And then we had Jimmy Bradshaw, who was in a bunch of bands, Squat Thrust, Voltage. Jimmy Bradshaw had gotten back from an Alaskan fishing expedition and had a little bit of change in his pocket, and so those three gentlemen. Dave
Herman sniffed him out.
Yeah, those three gentlemen were the ones who got the Cavity started, and it all kind of grows from there in our story.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Ear Candy 2.0, and we've got special guests Richard Weimark here tonight and Mr. Greg Beats, and they've also, in addition to the story that they are telling about the Austin music scene circa, let's say, starting right around 1990 and going forward for just convenience sake, that they're going to be telling through a multimedia project, they brought some music in from that time period as well. That first song, Greg, tell us about the first song.
Well, that first song was actually by a band that was called Gomez before the UK band that most people know as Gomez was Gomez. And the song was called Going to the Show. That band featured our co-conspirator Chepo Pena on bass and vocals there, as well as Ryan McDaniel on guitar. I don't know who was playing drums for Gomez at that particular point. It might have been Paul.
Or Keith Palumbo?
It might have been Keith, actually.
I think it was Keith.
It might have been Keith.
Palumbo.
I'm sorry. It might have been Keith or it might have been Brandon. I'm not sure which one. But yeah, Keith Palumbo sounds right at that particular junction. That was in 1994. I think that song came out. So
that would be my guess. And what else do you have?
If
queued
Chepo
up?
were here, he'd know.
Yeah, well,
could tell.
Chepo would know. He would know.
He's being a good dad tonight.
Oh, okay. See, I was going to chastise him for not and make it personal
No,
that
no,
we're
no.
such old friends and he didn't come in to my darn radio show.
He's
But
being a good dad.
that's the one excuse
Yes.
that
An
is-
11-month-old will do that
Yes,
to you.
that will do that to you. Actually, that and any family related excuse is a good one. So we love you, Chepo. We do wish you were here though. But yeah, so we got your music as next best thing. And next up we got queued up is, I believe,
This would be Stretford. So
That's right.
we talked a little bit about Carl Normal's role, and Carl I think suggested the idea for a club, and Starin kind of was one of the people who kind of took off and ran with that. And then Carl also, we interviewed Britt Daniel from Spoon, and I think Carl was instrumental in getting Britt his first appearance on an Austin stage back when he was in a band called Skellington.
That's right.
So Stretford was always one of our favorites, and they kind of had a crossover, both from people who were more pop-minded as well as the people who were more punk-minded. And this particular single and this particular version of this song was one that Craig Kuhn from Rise Records put out. And my understanding is that Craig insisted that the guitar solo, which we'll hear, sound like it did in the original demo. In other words, that it was overdubbed in a really obvious way, and that it was much louder than the rest of the song. So maybe we can listen to it, and you can kind of hear if they hit the note that their record label was looking for.
All right, let's check it out.
Xerox Love.
Xerox Love.
Just set the shade and make the right copy. And if it was increased percentage, make it bigger than I thought it could be. Set the tone and read instructions, press the button, wait for it to charge. My design is Xerox look and then be mounted, never fall apart. Won't you be my Xerox lover? Can you print in any color? The dimensions of my heart are waiting for you to press start. Won't you be my Xerox lover? Xerox lover, Xerox lover, oh. There's something wrong with my machine. The paper of my passion stuck inside. But if I'm very careful, I can open up and take a look inside. My piece of paper all ripped up and scrunched into a crumpled little ball. Xerox machine, you photocopied my love, then you jammed and watched me fall. Can you print in any color? The dimensions of my heart are waiting for you to press start. Won't you be my Xerox lover?
you want from us is stupid traditions. You weakened our souls to where our minds are so weak, and all that you expect is for us to be so meek. Identity crisis, identity crisis. Identity crisis, identity crisis, identity crisis, identity crisis.
You are listening to Ear Candy 2.0. We are going to let things get loud with Rig. All right. You're listening to Ear Candy 2.0 on Co-op Radio. I want to throw it back to our guest here.
I don't want to speak for Greg, but I think this is safe to say that we wouldn't be where we are now without... Are we allowed to mention your sister station?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Without KVRX and Co-op. We started as kids at KVRX and then moved on to Co-op in mid to late 90s. And without that, I certainly wouldn't have the career I've had, which has taken me around the world. And I can pinpoint it back to KVRX and Co-op training me how to do everything in this industry. And it's well worth keeping it alive to help, students and people to learn, not just how to DJ and not just about music, but on the business end of things as well. It's amazing. It really is.
We're very fortunate, and I'm in the same boat. I started off doing any radio I did ever, and learned a great deal. I learned at KVRX. And then, you know, it took me a lot longer to make it over here, but I eventually did. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, the relationship, you know, because that you know, it was kind of just things falling into place to allow the two to share the frequency, and a lot of people agreeing to a lot of different things, and so it really has worked out to very beautifully.
And that story's part of what we're doing as well. So the Curious Mix of People story involves KVRX and Co-op quite strongly, because it was that time, I think like 96 maybe. I know when KVRX went live, when April Joseph on the Ho Show played FM by the Slits, I believe it was. Yeah. They had a party at Schultz's Beer Garden to go live. And then I've just seen footage of Co-op going live as well with a party in the original studios, which is fantastic. And then Steve Bishop from KVRX and Jenny Wong from Co-op did a press conference explaining the partnership of the 91.7 FM deal. And that's a huge part of our story, because we also talk about the support system that the bands had, like all the zines and Sound Exchange and Dave Preitt at Capsize on Access TV. I mean, it was amazing. It wasn't just bands playing in clubs. They were playing at co-ops and house parties, and people were writing about them in zines and putting those zines on the shelves at Sound Exchange. It was amazing.
It truly was. You mentioned Dave Preitt. We had him in here on Ear Candy 2.0 as a guest just a couple months back. And I really wanted to have him in because I think he is like the most underappreciated person in the Austin music. Well, to my mind, yeah, because I mean, to me, I think he should be getting like awards or be putting in Hall of Fames or whatever it is, just because there's one beautiful story he said when they were doing the Austin Music Awards, right? And Austin City Limits wins year after year after year, and someone goes up to collect it and said something like, well, I guess we win it again, there's no real competition. And Preitt goes, what? And so the next year, Capsize wins. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, go figure. Well, yes, Dave, Raw Time Dave. He's still out there, still documenting bands. You know, just relentless in his quest to document bands, their live videos. So. I think just the sheer amount of material that Dave has chronicled over the years, that can't be fully appreciated without going and just seeing everything he has and how many bands he has documented over the years. It's true. Yeah, and if I could just for a second, I just wanted to harken back to the whole discussion about Co-op and KVRX, because I actually came into KVRX before it was KVRX. It was actually still KTSB, and the only way you could get it was to plug a little splitter into the back of your cable television, and you could that's the way you could listen to it in stereo, or you could turn to one of the cable access channels, and while they were showing like the school lunch menu or something, you could listen to, you know, Pigface or somebody like that. But that's right. Yeah, I would have to second what Richard said about it. You know, and that was something that really, you know, before the 90s, you know, Austin radio didn't, you know, I mean, you think about having those two stations come up in the 90s and what those two stations did for all the bands here, all the people who've worked at either one of those stations since then. And I know so many people who've, gone on to, you know, careers, not necessarily in radio or music, but who still use the skills that they picked up working as volunteers for those stations every day. So yeah, but I think you know, just the power of you know, being a volunteer and working together to get those things done is really really big, and it was a big part of the whole music scene in the 90s. Well, we absolutely have, and even more recently, we've really tried to increase collaboration with KVRX here at Co-op, and you know, it's just was as fruitful as ever. And yeah, so folks out there listening right now, if you want to continue seeing us going in that collaboration, just go to koop.org or dial 512-467-KOOP. But Greg, I got a question for you.
Yes.
And I have notes too, if you don't have it all. But do you want to remind folks of what they heard?
I know it might be time to do a little back announcing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we started with Xerox Love from Stretford.
That's
from,
right.
Their 1993 Rise Records 7-inch on delicious blue vinyl. After that, we heard from Pork, who were another really popular band in the very early days of the Cavity. Pork was a trio of young women, guitarist, bassist, and a drummer who stood up, just playing this very primitive garage rock, but it had just a flavor to it, a pop flavor to it, and they put so much of themselves into the material that it made it very, very compelling. And that was their song "I Never Knew" from the Explosion in Texas compilation that Austin Throwdown Records put out also in '93. And then after that, we heard something from the Hammocks.
That's right.
The Hammocks were a band founded by a gentleman named Bob Taylor, who was living in San Marcos at the time. At the time this recording that we just heard, Identity Crisis, was made, Ken Danley from Stretford was playing drums in the Hammocks. And Ken has a very, very specific hi-hat feel too. I mean, nobody plays, I think he's probably playing like 16ths or something like that on the hi-hat, or if not, maybe it's 17ths. It's hard to tell, but but nobody plays it quite like Ken Danley played it. And
He's really distinct, isn't he?
He's one of the most distinctive drummers I think I've ever heard.
And intense.
And it's his and very, very just intense. And his hi-hat sound in particular, I don't think anybody else could play a hi-hat just like Ken played one. And so that was Identity Crisis from Unclean Records, which was a label that Roger Morgan ran out of his, I guess it was an adjunct of his job at Sound Exchange. That's kind of another piece, is that Sound Exchange sort of spawned all these independent labels that were all run by all of the people who worked there. So Rise Records was run by Craig Kuhn, who was one of the managers, and then Roger ran Unclean. And then I think that the last song we heard...
Just as a side note, just for those listening who might be newer to town, when you go up Guadalupe and you see the Daniel Johnston frog on the side of a Thai restaurant that's called Thai How Are You, that is where Sound Exchange used to be, right on that corner. So it was perfect for UT students and anyone really to go in there and pick out vinyl.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think that we have to point that out, but it's true. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to not know that.
Yeah. It's kind of a sense of place thing. And if, you still sort of think of it as common currency, but that's a good thing to point out. But that just to back announce that last song, it was a band called Rig, who later became known as Crown Roast. And that was actually two songs that were spliced together called Undertow and Player from their Unclean Records 7-inch from 1994. And that 7-inch actually caught the ear of one John Peel over in the UK. So I think he got a couple of spins out of Mr. Peel off of that one. And it's just a really, really powerful track.
You're doing well if you catch the ear of John Peel.
Yes.
That is for sure. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Ear Candy 2.0, and the disembodied voices that are not mine that you're hearing right now are Greg Beats and Richard Weimark, who are here talking about a multimedia project that they're working on called A Curious Mix of People. And we discussed how, it started out as a documentary film kind of morphing
That's
into
right.
other mixed media.
That's right.
And Richard, when did you kind of realize that you needed to expand the bits of media to
it was when
this?
it was when Chepo and I both got really overwhelmed by the amount of footage that we had on a hard drive, and we just couldn't face it for the time being, and so we had all these interviews transcribed. And I thought, well, we're a bit older now. We read books. Everyone's read Please Kill Me.
Yep.
And we wanted to do something like that. And Greg here is just an amazing journalist, especially of that era. And he is an encyclopedia about all that. And so he's helping structure this book. And we've had some book publishers actually ask if they could publish the book. So that's really nice.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Nothing's been signed or anything, but that's a really nice.
Well, and
pat
it
on the
makes
back.
sense because Greg, you worked on the Chronicle anthology, isn't that right?
Yeah, I did, and I wrote for the Chronicle for many years, and certainly was kind of doing quite a bit of stuff for them back in the in the 90s. Being a younger person with more time and pretty good feet, it made it a lot easier to to get around and pop around from place to place, and so. And I was not really unique in the sense that I was, writing for the Chronicle, also playing in bands, doing a zine. I think most people who were part of that scene had, were doing one thing or another, or two or three things. I mean, people engaged in it in many different ways, and I don't know that that's really changed very much. But I think what maybe has changed. Is just that it was still a very regionally focused scene. We didn't have the internet or anything like that. If you wanted to go on tour, you had to find a phone card and hopefully somebody would be there at Tuesday at 4 p.m. to
That's right.
to book a show. And so, if you wanted something to do, I mean, there was just a very hyper local focus, and if you wanted to promote your band, you went down and put up flyers all up and down the drag, which was still, I think it was illegal, but it was widely tolerated, enough so that now we have a whole series of coffee table books illustrating the art, and that wasn't unique to the 90s either. That's going all the way back to the 60s or even further than that, but that's kind of one of my working thoughts about this whole project is that yes, things were going on before and things were going on after, but just what are some of the unique characteristics about what was going on in Austin music during the 90s? And I think that regional focus and the fact that it wasn't necessarily connected to the greater world by the internet yet. It was something you maybe connected to through zines you'd order from out of town or through Maximum Rock and Roll or something like that. But it was it wasn't instantaneous, so it was something you kind of had to go out and look for.
But you make a good point, though. The internet was slowly coming in.
It was.
And it was interesting talking to Conrad from Trailer Dead. When they moved here from the Pacific Northwest, it was just about when the university got internet and Conrad was working there, so he was able to use downtime to create a website for Trail of Dead. Mm-hmm. And that sort of helped them get out of Texas like no other band had been able to before, because that's a long drive.
It is, and this may have been much later, but it would make sense that they were also one of the first bands from that scene to kind of like really have a go at touring internationally. I mean, I remember their shows in South America kind of became a thing of legend, like how well they were received down there, and having the internet definitely would help something like that happen.
Yeah, so that was just starting, wasn't it?
Yeah,
when you had that
absolutely.
Squealing modem every time you wanted to get online.
Oh yeah, and 10 minutes to download a song off Napster. So Richard, we got a song queued up, but one question that I wanted to ask you, specifically because you've been dealing with the footage and for a few years now, and there's so much of it. Mm-hmm. I've noticed this trend on Netflix, of course, but other streaming video companies as well, where they have documentaries now, something that could be told in an hour, you'd think, but it stretches out over 6 episodes, 4 episodes.
It's funny you should say that. I'm going back and forth. Like, do we make it like Greg and I have been talking about this, and Chapo as well? Do we make it the definite article? Is there 90 minutes? That is it. That's the documentation of this.
Yep.
Or do we do it in a series? Do we do The Cavity? Then next one, Emos comes along,
Right.
lands on the corner of 6th and Red River. You know, moving on and on. Do we cover a whole episode on zines and zine making and what that's about? That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It is.
For very little, you know, financial return, which isn't the big point of this, but at some point, you know, you can't go broke.
Right. That's absolutely true.
So we're currently under discussion.
Well, just thought I would throw it out there because I noticed this trend.
It's a big trend. It is, absolutely. And it could work well. And, you know, you're not the first person to suggest it could be a series. You know, maybe 20 minutes an episode or something like that. Yeah, there's enough footage for it.
Absolutely. Well, if you're just tuning in to Ear Candy 2.0, we have our special guests, Richard Weimark and Greg Beats, and they're talking about A Curious Mix of People, a multimedia documentation of Austin music scene from 90s and forward. And we got a song queued up. Greg, you want to tell us what it is?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the record labels that were sort of spawned out of Sound Exchange, and there were numerous labels: Rise, Unclean, I think Undone, Bunkhouse, and I'm probably leaving a few out. But
was Joey there?
Joe, I don't know if Joey ever would. I don't know if Joey Edwards
there
from
a
Little
lot.
Deputy. He was there a lot. I don't know if he worked there. But anyway, I think the big kahuna regarding labels in Austin at that time was, of course, Trance Syndicate, which was started by King Coffee, the drummer for the Butthole Surfers, as a New Year's resolution in 1990. And I think the reason that he wanted to start that label was because of his experience in a band going out and touring, and he wanted to have a hometown label that could support local bands and give them an outlet where they wouldn't have to necessarily like just throw something out to California or New York to get it out. So he got started with a band called Crust, and Ed Hall was another big band in the early days of Trance Syndicate. And the record we're about to hear is by a band called Cherubs, which was started by actually Kevin Whitley and Owen McMahon and Brent Prager played drums for that band, but Kevin had played drums previously for Ed Hall, and then he kind of struck out on his own with Cherubs. And this song we're going to hear is from one of the best albums of the 90s. It's 1994. The album's called Heroin Man. We're going to hear the lead track, and it's called Stag Party.
Let's do it.
I just took a dump in the emo's bathroom before we played, and for the first time, it's been clean. So if you have to poop and you're afraid to use the restroom, just go right ahead, because it's pretty clean. The floor is not wet.
Just us
over Frenchie's guitar feedback. You're listening to Ear Candy 2.0. Let's get back to our special guests, Richard Wymark and Greg Beats. And as I bring their mics back up, hey guys.
Hello.
What? I mean, we could. This music has been incredible. On artists that are featured in the documentary.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, these bands haven't stopped.
Yes.
Like 16 Deluxe, who you just heard just then, right?
Yep.
They are playing at the 310 ACL Live on Saturday, April the 18th. They're still playing.
Yeah.
Frenchie's still got the bubble. Carrie, the singer and guitarist, has got 2 bands going, I believe. I know QQ. Is she in Living Pins as well?
I think she is.
Yep.
Yeah.
She is.
But QQ is quite good.
Oh, they're
Yes,
amazing.
Amazing.
I mean, more than quite good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, and funnily enough, just looking at the single that 16 Deluxe put out, then that was produced by Kevin Whitley. Didn't know that. Crazy, huh?
Now it's all coming back.
Yes.
And Greg, why don't you run down real quick what the other songs that we heard?
Well, let's see. I guess we started out with Stag Party from Cherubs.
Yep.
That was from
You've got such a good radio voice.
Oh, well, thank you.
So good.
Well, you just totally interrupted my train of thought, Richard.
It's gone now.
But that was from the album Heroin Man, and then I think we heard Fresh Fish Surprise by Gut from the Rise Records Live at Emo's compilation. Gut was really, I think, one of the better exemplars of sort of the prog punk subgenre of underground music that was happening in the 90s, and that was from about 1994, I believe, recorded in 93. I think I was actually there the night that happened because I remember Richard McIntosh, the vocalist, talking about how he had relieved himself in the facilities at Emo's and had found it quite satisfactory, which if you ever went to Emo's, you know that was most definitely very rarely ever the case.
Yes.
So,
no.
yeah.
And speaking of recordings, that Heroin Man album was recorded at Sweatbox.
Yes.
Which
yes.
brings
Yes.
us back to Co-op
Full circle,
Radio
full circle, yes.
when they were on 5th Street before it all burnt down. Co-op Radio and Sweatbox Studios shared a building.
That's right.
And the fella who owned it, apparently, he was on a shooting trip with Dick Cheney. And Dick Cheney shot him.
In the face.
In the face.
Around the same time that Co-op Studios, that he owned that building, burnt down. It was a hell of a week for him.
Yeah, man.
That was his name was Harry Whittington, I believe, was the man who owned that.
First your building burns down, then you get shot in the face by Dick.
But
Yeah, well, that's a... Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. Don't let your mind go too far with that.
So we've got this first zine out, and we're looking to put another one out in the summer. And I've been chatting with Rebecca Cannon, who was in Sincola.
Yes.
And she's going to do a guest spot in this next zine, writing about how the Riot Girl movement influenced her and the music she made with Sincola, going back to Bikini Kill and 7 Year Bitch and all the fantastic Riot Girl bands that just sort of exploded. So that's sort of why we've got Sincola queued up. With a video that was made by Hyde Fontenot. There's another support system. Hyde Fontenot made some of the most amazing music videos at the time.
Yes.
And he made the video for this single, which is called Bitch. And then after that, Melissa Bryan's band, the Shindigs, and there's obviously a theme here, and it's something to point out that it just felt natural that there were just women in bands. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but when you left Austin or left Texas, it just wasn't a thing. It was a dude fest.
Yeah.
And this isn't. I just want to point out this isn't Richard and I saying this. This is really based on the interviews that we've done with numerous women who were participating in the scene.
Absolutely,
yeah.
but it's also just being part of it.
Yeah, well, that's true. You did. It was something that was, and I think really even going back even further than that in Austin. I mean, I just remember when I first got here, you had bands like Glass Eye, you had bands like the Reavers. 100th Monkey. There. Even in the '80s, you really saw some gender parity in bands that you really didn't experience as much outside of Austin. So I think, maybe people kind of took that and ran with it in the 90s.
Well, I that was my experience too, both here and traveling outside of Austin. And so I think it's great that y'all are celebrating it, and we're celebrating it tonight. So let's see if we can get Rebecca's voice up in non-chipmunk mode. And I think we got it.
the phone anymore, 'cause she has a boyfriend. Doesn't talk to me anymore, 'cause she has a boyfriend. Doesn't go to shows anymore, 'cause she has that boyfriend. Doesn't call me back anymore, 'cause she has that boyfriend. It's fun how you talk about it, and you all agree. Oh no, I won't do that to you. You don't do that to me. Oh yes, it's fun how you talk about it, and you all agree. Oh no, I won't do that to you. You don't do that to me.
thank Co-op every week for giving me the opportunity to have folks like yourself in and, highlighting great music and great people that are doing great endeavors, much like a curious mix of people. And I look forward to, I've seen the Volume 1, Episode 1? Volume 1.
The Zine?
Of the Zine.
Yeah,
And,
that came out at Jennifer Hecker's Zine Fest on Sunday. It's out now. That'll be out for a few months, and then we'll put out another one in the summer.
And where can people get that if they
Well,
want to?
that's a very good question. The Buzz Mill, which has a strong connection to this whole scene through Market Sound Exchange, etc., they're going to distribute
Fagan.
it.
Yeah.
It's Mark Fagan to you
that's
and me.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to have it at their counter. If people were kind enough to sign up to the Patreon thing we got going, I'll mail them one out.
Are you on all the social media
Just
platforms
the Facebook.
Just the
It's
Facebook.
a curious mix of people. Funnily enough, that wasn't taken.
Go figure.
And that's the website where you can get to the Patreon as well.
All right, excellent. And actually, I wanted to mention too, I would love to have you guys back again in the future, and we can pick right up where we left off. And because I see Greg and you, Richard, have a whole stack of music that we didn't get to have. But
Any time.
okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to that, and we'll get you guys back up here soon. And thanks y'all for listening. Thanks for being members of Co-op, and we will catch y'all next week on the flip side.